Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Rausan Pereira. Well, the government on Wednesday allowed complete marketing freedom for natural gas. The Union Cabinet, headed by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, approved a standard e-bidding procedure to discover the price of gas. While procedures will continue to be barred, or rather producers will be barred from participating in such auctions, affiliates would be allowed to bid. Now, the marketing reform would help add 40 metric million standard cubic meters per day. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the natural gas economy. Joining me on the program today are Narendra Taneja, energy expert; Sushil Chandra Tripathi, former Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas; and A.K. Bhattacharya, Editorial Director of the Business Standard. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. All right, Mr. Tripathi, let me start the program with you first. Let's try and understand and analyze, what do you make of this decision of the government to go ahead and bring about these reforms as far as natural gas marketing is concerned?
See, let me draw a perspective. In the primary commercial energy, fossil fuel, they are nearly 80 to 90% of the basket. World average is nearly 80%. In India, we are even more dependent on them, so it is close to 90. So one, that we have to reduce the dependence on fossil fuel. Now, among the fossil fuel, coal, oil and gas, the principal fossil fuel, gas is least polluting out of the three. So most countries are trying to change from coal and oil to gas. And world average in the fuel basket of energy for natural gas is about 23%. And it should keep increasing because the countries are trying to reduce their dependence on coal and oil. In India, our gas share in the fuel basket is about 6%. It was earlier a little more, 8-9%, went up even to 10-11%, but at present it is about 6%. So we need to use more gas and reduce dependence on coal. Our dependence on coal is to the extent of more than 50%. So gas has to replace coal as much as possible, and also to some extent oil. And our consumption right now is about 1/3 world average. So our consumption has also to keep increasing along with the increase in the per capita income and growth of the economy. Therefore, our gas consumption has to increase and replace other fossil fuels. Now, in our country, you see the price of gas for nominated blocks, the blocks which were given to ONGC Oil India more than 15-20 years ago, in fact, before 1999. There, of course, the prices and the cost of production of gas is low. But other fields which have been given later in different programs, NELP, HELP, and Open Area, etc., they are more difficult fields. Either they are deep sea or even onshore, they are more difficult. And therefore, the cost of production will be higher. Now, presently, gas prices in all those countries are quite low. If we continue to have that price, then it is not economical for most fields to produce gas. And we, at the moment, even when we have a share of gas only 6%, about 50% of gas is being imported in form of LNG. LNG works out more costly because there are three processes involved. One, that at the end of producer, there has to be liquefaction, then there has to be special ships to carry them, then at the receiving end, there has to be gasification. So $2 per million BTU gas price at producer end becomes about $6 per million BTU at our end. So therefore, I think it is a good policy that the government has adopted. And in fact, it was in the spirit of the NELP when that was announced in late 90s and early 2000 that the producers will have freedom to market and freedom to price. So the market should find the right price, and it should encourage more producers to invest and to produce more gas. I know we are not very, very rich in endowment as far as oil and gas is concerned, but whatever we have, I think we should do it economically and viably. That is it. issue.
Okay, points taken. Let me go across to Mr. Taneja now. So, Mr. Taneja, what is the potential really as far as natural gas in our country is concerned? You know, in 2010, when the D6 block was found in the Krishna Godavari basin, there was a lot of, noise and a lot of hullabaloo around it back then, about 10 years ago. But since then, we have not seen the same kind of excitement really as far as natural gas is concerned. What could be the reason as well for that?
Well, the reason is God. I mean, we're just not that blessed. I mean, geologists and scientists, they say that, we have got some more gas, but that's all in deep water and ultra deep water. And the economics of ultra deep water, the game of ultra deep water, are completely different. It's a very different ball game. But we have already joined the deep water club, which is an exclusive club. There are not too many countries actually active in deep water, but we are active now. But again, as I said, we need to explore more. And when exploration in deep water is very, very costly. It's not cheap. It's a very, very, capital intensive exercise. And many of the companies may not be actually well equipped to do that. Like, for instance, under Sagar Samriddhi, the campaign you are referring to of ONGC, we invested billions of dollars with practically no results, absolutely no result. So now I think when I look at the geology of India, look at the surveys done so far, prospects in deep water, ultra deep water, it looks like probably if we really want to go, full hog into the gas economy, our dependence on import is only going to grow. Right now, our dependence is in the region of about 54 to 55%. And when you look at the kind of new LNG terminals that we are constructing and the deals we are signing with different countries, it looks like that we are moving in that direction. But the government move now to go for, e-bidding and all that, I think is fantastic, is very good. But at the same time, the reality is that 80% of natural gas in India produced by ONGC, produced by Oil India Limited, it falls under APM, which means the government controls the price. So you've got basically, three different regimes here. You've got APM, where the government has control, is roughly 80%. Then you have got non-APM, where for the, basically the contractual agreements and so on and so forth. That's where the whole thing is going to apply. And then third is, of course, imported. That is LNG. And as I said, our dependence is growing. And at the same time, we have to keep in mind that, until now, the entire world and more countries like India, we've been talking about basically moving into gas economy, basically, buying more gas or using more gas. But now that again has come under a big question mark. Should we really go for a gas economy, or should we leapfrog and go for electricity? Basically, age of electricity, because it looks like our government right now is more kind of, inclined to move in the direction of age of electricity. So you kind of leapfrog. And I personally feel that's not a bad idea at all, because after all, we may still need more natural gas in order to produce electricity, more renewables, more atom, and so on and so forth. But I think the real looking at the density of population, pollution problems in India, I think, yes, natural gas is cleaner than coal, cleaner than petrol, diesel, and all that. But to say that is absolutely clean, is a green fuel, I have my doubts. I wouldn't really call it green fuel. It's not. It hurts you. It hurts your body. You see, but at the same time, given the present picture and all that, I think we should move in the direction of natural gas, exploit more our basins, both in onshore and in our seas, also import more, construct more power plants, construct more LNG terminals, build, if possible, bring Turkmenistan gas and Iranian gas to India via pipeline. We should do all that. But at the same time, I think we need to invest more, and our economy should be moving in the age of electricity. And I think by 2030, we should try to see that, wherever we are using gas, even for cooking, for instance, we should start using more electricity and investing more in that, because, when you look at carbon emissions, look at the health of the people, dense population, and so on and so forth. So I think there are many question marks over there, but the government move is very encouraging. And I personally feel that, when it comes to pricing, the government should really give more freedom to producers and more freedom to buyers. And government should, to the extent possible, get out of the way. Even the APM, for instance, I think APM, the whole regime needs to be revisited. And we need to kind of explore that when companies like ONGC, they go into deep water, they work on completely different economics. To keep on saying these are nominated blocks, therefore APM is essential and all that, I think we need to put this debate to rest and give companies, ONGC, Oil India, and other producers full freedom. And basically, go for reforms in that direction. And to have kind of 4, 5, 6 different kind of prices, for the same molecule, I don't think it really makes a very good sense. I'm not saying that we change it overnight, but at least we need to start moving in that direction. Go for more natural gas, and it is better than coal. But at the same time, I think we need to move in the direction of wage electricity, where natural gas plays a very important role as a fuel to generate more electricity and also work as a kind of bridge fuel. We use natural gas as a bridge over the next 20, 25 years while we prepare for the age of electricity for India.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. Bhattacharya, let's come back to the marketing reforms now. So, does this take us closer to an open market mechanism really as far as natural gas is concerned?
Well, I think there are some positives in what has been announced by the government through a cabinet decision. I think there is certainly marketing and pricing freedom granted to the new players in the field of gas production. There is a role that has been clearly assigned to the regulator. So the regulator position in what needs to be done has been ascertained once again. There is also the element of freedom of choice been given in the sense that it will not just be one e-bidding platform. There will be more than one e-bidding platform from which the producer can choose which platform to follow and determine the price at which it wants to sell its produce or gas. So all these are very positives. But the key issue here is that this reform, as of now, impacts only 20% of the gas production, in a sense that the nominated fields account for almost 80% of India's gas production at present. And these nominated gas fields will be outside the benefit zone of the new policy. I would not hazard a guess here, but what I do fear is this, that if this policy, the principle of this policy, is not extended to the existing players as well soon enough, the fear is that the existing production may also suffer. Because if you see that the new fields will take advantage of an e-bidding platform and discover the price that it needs to and it should, my fear is that will there be some sort of a disincentive for the existing players to operate under a pricing regime that only on October 1st saw a 25% drop or cut in prices to $1.79 per British thermal unit, British thermal unit. So therefore, we have to sort of reserve our judgment on what this policy will do. In principle, this policy is very good, well-intentioned, but I think the gap between the coverage of this policy for the only non-nominated fields to cover the entire area of the gas production should not be long. If the period, that transition period is long, my fear is that the overall gas economy may actually be adversely hit.
Right.
Please remember that when you are producing gas under the new field, what you have under the new field and the new e-bidding platform, you have barred the producer to get into this, but the affiliates can get into this. So I have not yet studied the implications of this very minute distinction between the producer and the affiliates. It will play out how in the real platform how that plays out. But on the whole, I do feel that it's a good move, and it must be extended to the entire gas sector. And it's time that we bid goodbye to the APM system, which we introduced in 2014. I mean, in a different form, of course, with a mixed pricing formula. But this new formula should be sooner than later, should be extended to the entire gas sector.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Tripathi, there are some very, very crucial points that have been raised by Mr. Bhattacharya. how do you propose that these be addressed, and do you see them as big problems?
Nominated fields, you see, the logic is that there was no payment given to government when these fields were allotted. And they were allotted long time back, and they were among the best fields at that point of time, and it was a monopoly. Now, I agree that over now, all these nominated fields are more than 20, 25 years old, and they are quite depleted. They need rejuvenation. They need investment of the same kind as the new fields do. And therefore, they should be given the right to market and right to price. But here, the impediment is that most of the gas coming from nominated fields goes for fertilizer. And fertilizer is heavily subsidized. So once the government takes a decision that fertilizer subsidy will go directly into the accounts of the farmers and fertilizer industry will not be subsidized, then I think it will become easier to take a view that these fields should also have the same freedom of marketing and pricing as the other fields have. And I agree the time has come to give them the same freedom. It is true that, the cost of production of gas in India cannot be compared with the cost of production of gas from where we are taking the formula for determining the price of gas produced locally. So here also, if we have to increase the availability and at the same time, due to an increase in availability, increase the consumption of gas, then the same freedom need to be given to the nominated field producers also. But at the same time, I would also agree with what Mr. Taneja has said, that India continues to be deficient in these resources, and therefore we should, at this point of time when the prices are low, enter into contracts for importing gas either by pipeline or by LNG. Pipeline, we tried in during the period when I was in the ministry, both from Iran and from Turkmenistan and from Myanmar, but geopolitical considerations did not favor at that point of time. Sure. I do not know how the situation is now, but we should keep trying, and until we can get large resources via pipeline, we should tie up with the LNG sources, supply of LNG. They come at a little pricier, but then they will still be competitive with the price that these other fields will be producing gas at. So we need to get more gas, more affordable gas. And last point about electricity. Electricity is not the primary source of energy. It's a secondary source. You generate electricity either by coal or by gas or by oil products or by nuclear or by hydel or even by other renewables. So renewables and nuclear are still in their infancy in India. And when we are replacing coal and diesel, as well as petroleum products, we'll need more gas even to generate electricity. In fact, in most of the developed countries, electricity near large towns is being generated only by gas to avoid pollution to the same extent as it happens when you use coal. So we will need much more gas. As I said, the gas share in the world basket, energy basket, is 23-24% and is about to increase. Our share is very small, 6%. So we have a long way to go. Absolutely. We should do everything to increase availability of gas. And of course, we have to see the pricing also, because our market is price sensitive. So import LNG, which is competitive.
Absolutely. All right. So, Mr. Taneja, let me take the points that Mr. Tripathi has made forward. Now, he's reiterated this point about how gas comprises about 6% of India's primary energy mix, far behind the global average of 24%. The government plans to increase this particular share to about 15% by 2030. Do you see that happening, and how do we do that?
Well, it might actually happen sooner. In this sense, it all depends on, like, the policy initiative announced that we are discussing here today. I think fantastic. Is a very good step, and a very strong step in the right direction. But that said, at the same time, we got to understand that in India, bulk of the gas future prospects are all in water, and not only in shallow water, but in deep water and ultra deep water. And there, the economics is completely different. It's fine to focus on marketing. That's the easiest thing to do. But we got to focus on technology and the economics of drilling a well. When you drill a deep water well, the cost is the same whether you are in America, you are in India, Nigeria, or any other country. It's the same economics, the same cost, absolutely no difference. So therefore, I think, and if you really we need foreign investment into upstream in oil and gas exploration production, because our companies have done whatever they could, but we need more better technology. And some of these technologies are patented in the sense only BP has it, or ExxonMobil has it, or Shell, only they have it, which means that we have no option but to go and tie with them. And for that is important. And I think the signal has gone, the government is willing to carry on further reforms if required, which means the government-owned companies like ONGC, Oil India, and others, they can now enter into agreements, joint venture agreements with the biggies of the world, so that they can bring their capital, their expertise, and most importantly, their technology, so that we can drill deeper in the Bay of Bengal and also Kerala, Konkan, and the Arabian Sea and other places, because that's where the prospects are. And therefore, I think that right now with this policy, government has sent a very strong signal that, look, that's what the government means business. Government wants reforms, which has, according to my information I have in my interaction with various big companies from different parts of the world, that they are actually looking at as a very, very positive sign. So which means in time to come, we are going to see more exploration happening in the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, the Kerala Konkan region and others, although maybe near Andaman and Nicobar. And then we will be basically, producing more gas at home. But it is important to keep in mind whether you produce at home or you produce overseas, if it is deep water and ultra deep water, economics is the same. Therefore, the government should give them full freedom to these operators, whether they are joint ventures or foreign operators or independent operators, so that they have the freedom across the board, and they should also have the freedom to export if that makes a better economics. Sure. And at the same time, we should be negotiating. Right now, the prices of gas are very low world over. We should be negotiating more contract and bring that gas to here, or maybe just use it to hedge, so that we can, if that economics works for our gas producer. Important thing is, like in oil, natural gas, we need to be more aggressive. We need to be more dynamic. The government regulations are there, but it's important at the same time that the government only regulates. And the kind of freedom that our state-owned companies need, whether it's GAIL or it's ONGC or Oil India, for that matter, even other companies which want to venture into gas, like Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, I think that freedom should be given. Government should control. Regulation is very important. But what is important is at the same time to give them the freedom so that they can realize their full potential. Natural gas will remain very important for India's economy for next 30 years. It's going to be very, very important, crucial. Sure. And I think the share will go up even maybe beyond 15% by 2035 and all that. But that does mean that, and we can use more natural gas maybe at ports to produce electricity and bring that electricity, since we are now building a very efficient grid system, national grid system. So I think there's so many options and so too many things that we can do. But right now, the steps the government has taken, the intent the government has displayed, and that has sent the right signals to investors and players in natural gas across the world. And that's being welcome and celebrated. But we need to expand it further. And when we get a pointed question as the government, I think government must say that, look, that's what the government intent is, to reform further, to modernize further, and to basically to accept that natural gas is basically a global commodity and is a global commerce. And that's our spirit, and government will do whatever necessary in order to make sure that we have the gas available at the right prices, and we have domestic, whatever resources we are blessed with, that we exploit those resources and bring it to our consumer.
Absolutely. Mr. Bhattacharya, so what more needs to be done going forward, do you think, really, as far as tapping the entire natural gas basket is concerned?
Well, I think three clear things that they need to be really looked at very closely going forward. As I said, that the introducing price freedom for gas for the new fields is a positive, good step. But if you want to take full advantage of it, the first thing is to understand that the gas, natural gas, is part of an integrated energy economy. Now, you cannot do reform in the gas sector and expect that the full benefits of this reform will percolate down to the whole sector without reforming. For instance, Mr. Tripathi talked about the fertilizer sector pricing or the subsidy disbursement mechanism. Now, you need to undertake those reforms as well. Or for that matter, what happens to Mr. Taneja talked about the electricity sector. Now, what happens to the electricity tariff issues? Now, therefore, if you are doing reforms in the gas sector, welcome reforms, good decision, but gas is part of the energy economy, which is integrated to a large number of other sectors where reforms are equally needed so that the full benefits of this pricing freedom actually accrues to the economy. That is number one. Number two is that it is important to use the pricing freedom decision to build infrastructure in the country, because remember that even though you are thinking of producing more gas within the country, your import dependence is still around 55%. And even if the dependence has to come down, it will come down. Therefore, in interim, for the next 10, 15 years, you need to invest in infrastructure. And finally, I would say that gas is part of a very strategic, strategic importance. And diplomatically speaking, we need to renew our relations with countries which are rich in these resources, and maybe expedite the kind of projects that might help facilitate the entry and cooperation in the gas sector.
Sure. Okay. All right. On that note, then, I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. I'd like to thank all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that there is immense potential as far as gas consumption in India is concerned. We have to scale up in a big way, as gas is far more cleaner than any of the other fossil fuels and is going to be a very big part of our economy, at least for the next 3 decades. We need a holistic approach when it comes to our energy needs. We need to tap all our sources that are available and see what best suits our needs, both from an economic point of view as well as from an environmental point of view. As far as natural gas is concerned, the biggest challenge for us going forward is that most of our sources are either in deep waters or ultra deep waters, and exploration in these areas is going to be very, very expensive, and at some point economics is going to play a big role, and we are going to need more reforms if we have to explore for natural gas in these regions, is what the panelists are suggesting. What we need to do going forward, more reforms. We need to be more aggressive and more dynamic as well, so that we can see the right kind of reforms and the right kind of results. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.